guys, I'm just going to do a continuation of this Shows Your Workshop. I kept saying I'm going to do the TIG welder, which is here. I've dug it out and give it a bit of a wipe round with an oily rag. No, that's just a joke. And show me foot pedal and how I modified that to make it do what I wanted it to do. But just before I show this, Christmas, Bev always gets me an advent calendar for Christmas, and I buy nothing for anybody. I just give her money and she buys presents for grandkids, etc. But that's what women do, innit? You know, I'm hopeless when it comes to Christmas, knowing what to get anybody. You either give them some money or go with them and say, you pick what you want, sort of thing. But Bev always gets me something like surprising. And one of the things she got me, I don't know if you can see it there, it was a box about so big and about, I don't know, 3 inches deep. And in it, it had, well, on top of it, it had a lovely brochure, if you like it that. It had lots and lots of pages to it, all about Porsche. Well, many years ago I had a 911 Carrera, and before that, in the 80s, I actually built a replica 911 Turbo flat nose with a genuine 911 engine in, which some pictures kicking about somewhere. So she saw this and thought, yeah, I'll get him that one. One of grandsons, he's mad on tractors, so she got him a tractor. But this was actually a Porsche 911, an old one. And you build it day by day. You take a box out, they're all numbered, a bit like a jigsaw, different sized boxes. And you pick out a box for that particular day, and whatever's in it is in it, and you put it on and start building. So you actually build yourself a platform. So without any more yadding on about that, what I'll do is I'll move the camera over here so you can see it. It's a smash. Yeah, so that's it. It's a little stand, a bit of a picture at back, and day by day you build this Porsche 911, different, you know, body, screen, all different bits you put on it, until eventually after 25 days you've built yourself a Porsche. It's the really early one, that a 65, and it's the 2 litre one. Very early one is that. I think one I built when I built that replica, that was a 2.4 litre, 2.4T motor. Right, so when it's finished, you put this little battery in bottom, and there's a little speaker and a little chip in it, and you press the little button and it starts the car up and drives off. Now I don't know what a 2 litre original Porsche sounded like, but it's not my interpretation of one, but this is what it sounds like. So there you go. I just thought I'd show that. Yeah, it tickled me pink, did that. But, you know, last year I think she got me a little kit, and you build a socket set in a little box. Now, I've just seen a video that Matty's done, Matty's Workshop, and I think his missus is same. He's over in Aussie, and I think they build some socket sets. They look quite good actually. And it must be a day-by-day thing, a socket and an extension and a bit of this and a bit of that. But yeah, what a good idea. I just never have thought of doing anything like that. But that's women for you, isn't it? Kindness and thought, etc, etc. Okay, let's get on with this TIG welder. You'll have to excuse if there's a bit of a whining noise outside. They're building a new housing estate across. And every day they've got the road sweeper thing out, and God, it done half whine, it makes a right row. Right, so this is the thermal arc. This is a digital version. If any of you know all about TIG welders, which I'm sure most of you that'll see this do, They did, the originals all had a row of knobs across here, and you altered each thing, like your gas time and your up ramp and your down ramp and your main current and all that were all on a row of buttons. This one isn't, this is digital on here. I'll switch it on. It's very noisy. It's got a right big fan in there, so you'll have to excuse it. Two different modes, so you've got AC or DC. So for most types of welding, which would be mild steel or stainless, or even brazing, you'd use DC. AC, if you want to do aluminium. If you want to do pulse welding, there's a pulse feature there. Switch that on. If you want to purge your gas through without putting any current to the torch, you press the purge button and it does something like 5-second purge to push the argon gas through. Basically, all your settings are here, and you've got little LEDs that go up, and you follow them as you go along. Hot start. You set the currents, what you want for different parts, different things. Base current. So that won't alter, and I'll show you why. Down slope, that's your ramp down in current when you take your foot off or when you let go of the button. Post flow, that's your gas. So you can set that in seconds how much you want the gas to carry on for once you switch the torch off, which would shroud your work and stop it oxidising. We've done something that were very, very hot. Let's switch this off. It's doing my head in. Very noisy. But there must be massive fans in there. Yeah, so you post flow gas rate and you do a pre-flow, you can set that as well, which you would set to purge argon across your work, so that when you strike up there's no oxygen can get to the work. Otherwise the metal would start oxidising, it'd bubble and it'd carbonise and it'd ruin it. And you do your weld, and when you get to the end, take your foot off or your finger off the trigger, and you can drop the balance of the power down slowly and then knock the gas keep going, and to cool the work and to keep a purge on it. You'd also put argon gas inside a piece of pipe if you wanted to weld it properly. You can't just weld a piece of pipe. If I did the exhausts I used to do in stainless, I used to cap one end off, put a little pipe in the other and tape it all up, and put a purge pipe in there with argon. Leave that for a minute to get argon in there, and then start welding. So it'd weld on the outside and it'd actually weld on the inside as well. Makes a really nice job. So let's move it over to show you the torch. I'll just move the camera with it still on. So this is the torch that came with it, and it's a lovely torch. See that big length, I think it's 4 meters on it. So that's the torch that came with it. It's not a flexi head, but it's a heavy, bit of a ball joint on there. And this has got the trigger on the front to start it, and also it's got a current on the side, so you can turn your current up and down as you're welding. I've never mastered it, to be honest with you. I have to concentrate enough just to get my weld right without having to start messing with the current range at the same time. So that's when I decided to get a foot pedal, and I did, and I'll show you that, and I'll show you how it works, and why I said a minute ago I'll show you that later. So this is the foot pedal that I bought second hand, and I had to put a new speed pot in there. I don't know, 5 or 10k. I think that's the old one. 5k. That's the old one that were in there, but that's knackered. It's no good. It's got some track must be burnt on it. So you'd be welding and all of a sudden it'd stop welding and start again. And I thought it was me, and it wasn't, it was the pedal. So what did I do with this pedal? This pedal wasn't for my machine. It's only on a 4-core. But what I did was I fitted a switch. And I made it idiot proof, so that when it's on the floor and I'm using it, if I want to set the current, I can hook my foot under it and hook that up. But then when I'm ready to weld again, I flick that down, being down as in if I slip my foot off, I'm only knocking it down and not up, so that I won't upset the weld. What happens is, the current, if I don't touch it and I just run it, this is 0 or whatever the minimum of your welding current is. In my case on that welder is 5 amps. So when I first press this, you get a click. If you can hear that, that's the micro switch. That switches the welder on. And then after that, you've got your variac, your potentiometer, and that's turning and turning and turning as you press the pedal down till you get to its maximum. And this welder will go up to, I believe, 200 amps. So if you, well, it's called a 202 AC/DC, so I'm assuming it's 200. So it means pedal off, click, 5 amps, pedal hard down, 200 amps. You're welding some aluminium or something delicate and you want 30 amps, or 40 or 60 or 120. To find out that amount on that pedal is nigh on impossible. You'd have to have a foot that was so steady, you just couldn't do it. With the other torching, of course, you'd turn the knob on the torch and drop the current down, and you could do that on the fly. But with this you can't. So what I've done is I've altered this so that you knock that switch off, and all that switch does in the off position, it stops the torch firing up. So you've got the torch, that's dead, you can touch it on the work. With that off, you can press that pedal down and nothing happens. It doesn't work, which is how I wanted it to be. You then set your current, and what we'll do is I'll move this pedal across to the welder, and I'll try and do a shot where I can get both the pedal in and the welder, and you can see how I set that going. Basically what you're going to be looking at is the current up there. So we'll pop that there, and we'll, got to get through it, switch it on. Sorry guys, I'm not organised, am I? You're back to the noise again. Okay, so 5 amps is its minimum. If I press this down, I'm not getting anything. So if I want 50 amps, that's maximum. Foot hard down, 50 amps. Let it off, back to 5. 120 amps. You understand how it works now? But the torch is not live. It didn't go in anything. When I switch that switch down, that torch will come live again, and it'll start being ready to weld. So you can set it up like this. Once you've got that set up, simply flick the switch over, and it's ready to start welding with. I won't do that. I'm not doing any welding today. It is a big, heavy machine. I don't know how big it looks on the video there, but it is a big, heavy machine. It says portable, which I don't know how portable that is. It takes 2 people to lift it, or you need to get 2 hands on it and get it up to your waist. You can carry it that way, but it's quite heavy. It is an inverter one with a... I don't think it's got the big transformers in it. It's all electronic inside. But yeah, it's a fantastic addition to your workshop. Is a TIG welder. So why would you want a TIG welder? I'm always asking these questions, aren't I? Why would I? Oh, before I go any further, I've got a drawer. And that's dedicated to my TIG welding stuff. So things like TIG screens, and the one you've seen me using that one. I'm going to try and improve on that. Spare batteries for various parts, and there's a my TIG in here. These are various tungstens. They're your tungstens in different colours. That's I think that's a 3.2 sharpened to a point. If you get a TIG welder, and especially you're going to use high frequency and you want to grind your point, you really need a white or a green wheel, I believe, to do it, but you can do it on a normal one. It's just not as easy because it's hard stuff, tungsten. But when you're doing it, don't go into your grinding wheel and rotate like that. That's wrong. That puts rings round there. The electrons don't flow properly. What you need to do is have your grinding wheel going around like that, and you do it like that and turn it. That puts the grooves upwards from the base to the point. The electrons flow better. I know that for a fact because I saw it and I've read it. I'm not clever, I just read it somewhere. So yeah, that's all different size tungstens for larger and smaller work. There's different great colours, and some are thoriated and non-thoriated. There's some right weird names to them, but generally I just use any and it works. And here there's lots and lots of different size tips for the different sizes of tungsten that you've got. And then you've got your short back or your long back. If you want to do you know, some tight work, you could put a short one on, cut your tungsten down so it's smaller. And all the different pots, these are all different pots, loads of them, different sizes. You put a large pot on, you can have your tungsten stuck out further, and you can put more gas on it and you get a better purge. Obviously it costs you because argon's not cheap. So, you know, the bigger the pot, the more gas you're going to use. So I try and use a smaller one and keep the tungsten stuck in a little bit further. It works. Another must, some TIG welding gloves. Don't get these confused. Just hang on. I'll drink. Don't get these confused with welding gloves. These are TIG welding gloves. They're made out of something like calf skin. They're super soft, and you can feel what you're doing better. You've got a lot more control on your fingers, whereas big welding gloves are all thick and full of asbestos, etc., aren't they, or whatever, to make them heat proof, whereas these aren't, but they're lovely. They're not cheap, but they're lovely. Yeah, you've got more chance of doing the job right. Gas and rods. So my bottle of gas is there. Now that's not cheap. That looks very small through the back of this lens here, but this is worktop height, so it'll be what, 900, so the bottle's nearly 900 high. It's quite a big, I think it's 50 litres. Now British Oxygen is a no-no, because if you get one from BOC you've got to pay a yearly rental on them. These are ones where it's rental, no rental gas, but this is from a guy at York, I believe. But what you've got to do is you've got to pay up front first of all for your bottle, which I believe was something like £85. And then on top of that you've got your gas, with if it's MIG gas it's 5% CO2 in it. Sorry, 5% argon, 95% CO2. This is 100% argon for doing the TIG welding with. So that came to maybe, I can't remember whether it was £130 or £140 or something for the bottle and the gas. And when the gas runs out, I'll just have to pay for the refill of the gas. Unfortunately, and I've had this since I was a kid, if using oxyacetylene, if you've been welding a lot, you'll know that acetylene is a spongy mass and it's 225 psi, but oxygen is 2000 psi, or it was, it may be higher now. These come at 3000 psi, the bottle. Now I bought that bottle with 3000 psi in it, and it had that in it. Have a look what it goes on here. Yeah, 3000 psi it had in it, and now it's got, well, it's off at the moment, but I know for a fact it's got just over 1000 left in it, and I've hardly used it. Why? Because it flipping leaks. They all do. They're a nightmare, high pressure bottles. If you don't use it regularly, as in using the gas up, they're not good value, because the damn stuff gets out. You don't know where or how. I've tightened that valve down as tight as I can. I always had it with oxygen when I used to do oxyacetylene. It was always a problem, and it is with this bottle. So it was 3000. I did a little bit of alley welding. I think you might have seen me. I've got a video on where I made this oil cutting pot out of an old Volkswagen Golf part, and I TIG welded that bottom on there. So that was just a bit of alley welding. I did some other bits and some practicing, and I closed it down, and the next time I came to it, which might have been a month and a half, 2 months after, turned the gas on, 2000 psi. 1000 had gone, and now it's down to 1000. Once they drop below 1000, it doesn't happen as much, you know, so your chances are your last 1000 psi is going to last you quite a while, because it's dropped the pressure, so it stops leaking. High pressure getting out, it's a nightmare. I remember my dad, when we used to do cars, when we used to do cars, welding on cars, he used to take the regulator out, and he had he had a dummy bung that screwed into this, where the regulator goes, and we used to tighten it as tight as we could into the oxy. It still leaked, I must admit, it still leaked. I mean, if you look at that, this valve is only screwed in a bottle with PTFE tape. That's all that's on there is PTFE. So I don't know how that supposedly holds 3000 psi back. I don't know. It's a bit of a gripe I've got, and it pees you off. My lad's just got a bottle of MIG gas, same guy, and I'm hoping, you know, that's not going to run away with him over time. So yeah, if you're going to do TIG welding, you're going to need a bottle of gas. It's not cheap. Neither are TIG rods. Now, don't get mixed up with a TIG rod and a oxyacetylene welding rod. Let's have a look. I'll get a full rod out so I can show you. TIG rods have got silicone in them. Now, a normal oxyacetylene rod doesn't. Now, if you can see that, I don't know, but it's got a flat on it and it's stamped and it's got a number in it. They're TIG rods. Let's have a look. There you go. So these are cut down rods. That's just mild steel, copper coated mild steel. And again, look, if you can see that, it's flattened, and there's some sort of fancy number. These are all siliconed, and if you try welding with the normal mild steel rod, or a stainless rod, or a bronze rod, or whatever, and it's not got the markings on it, See, these rods are cut in half, so one end don't have it and they haven't, so if I can find one that has. No, I'm picking all the rods up, but it don't matter. It don't matter. So make sure you've got these, they're flattened on the ends. They're silicone, they're specifically for TIG welding. Otherwise, when you start welding, you'll wonder why it ain't welding very well. And I did. I went to Rufford Car Boot in New York, bought some rods, never thought that they were different for TIG. And came home, started welding, it was like I'd got no gas on, it was horrible. And that's all it was that I'd got the wrong rods. Okay, so the question I was saying was, why would you want a TIG welder? Or why would you want a MIG welder? And it's really, it's down to choice. However, if you get a MIG welder, they're great for doing fabrication. So if you're going to fabricate something like John's workshop, a big seat is thrown, all angle iron box section, a MIG welder is quick, easy, very easy to get used to using, and they're great. However, if you wanted to do some fine work, sort of delicate type work, then a TIG welder's great. If you want to do alley, you could do it with MIG. They do a MIG, but it's a bit of a science really. It's an high frequency thing, and usually they're water cooled. If you see them in the industry, some of the jobs we used to go on ICI, they used to do the checker plate flooring, and that were all in alloy checker plate, and they were all MIG welded with alloy. The welding set was huge. It was as big as a car. It had a massive radiator on the back, water cooled torch and everything. They get really, really hot. So forget that. If you're going to do alley, you need a TIG welder really, with AC. So don't be mistaken and buy yourself one of these cheap, which I'm not saying they're no good, a cheap TIG welder off eBay for 50 quid, or from Clark's, Machine Mart, or whoever else. They're okay. They're import from Far East, and I've had two before. Both eventually conked out, just stopped working. Took them to a guy that was supposedly the man in York, and he said he'd throw them away. I can't do what with them, can't get parts. They've scratched all chip numbers off. They're just a ash up, they're not very good. So I promised myself that one day I'd get myself a nice one and that I'd do alley, which I did, and I've bought this one. I hope I don't regret it in the future, but I've had it a couple of years. So far I don't regret it. It's good. It does AC, DC. You can do 2T, 4T starts, a scratch start, up, off, on, off. It's millions of settings. And it's great. And once you get used to it, it's great to use. My nerves aren't as good as what they used to be, so I need to really rest my hand, and I need to get some practice. It's like swimming. I've said this before, I think. You know, once you learn to swim, it's for life. You'll never forget how to swim. But if you haven't swum for a while and you jump in, you're going to get a gob full of water. Remember that. You are. And it's same with TIG. If you don't keep your hand in, I suppose it's same without snooker, pool, anything, isn't it? If you don't keep your hand in, you get rusty, and I am very rusty, and I do need to do some practicing. So probably another thing to do, another video, would be to get different materials on the bench and have a go at welding all the different ones. That'll be rather ambitious of me, but it's something to do in the future. So yeah, a TIG welder. I've got a TIG welder because I don't see myself doing any large fabrication work, although my son has now got, I got him a TIG welder, a MIG welder, so I can always borrow that. But I don't see myself doing any large fabrication jobs in the near future or in the distant future. So I'll sign off at that. I've said enough. But a TIG welder's great addition to your workshop. Great for doing little jobs, tacking things up, making little boxes, plates, small, you can weld big stuff with it, don't get me wrong. You bang a rope in there. If you did a fillet, a large fillet, you just turn current up, put a large tungsten in, plenty of gas on, and get your work hot, put a fillet in there, and then you could either do bead runs or you can do a weave run. There's no to say you can't do thick steel with it, because you can. It just takes forever. Whereas with a MIG weld, it'll be done in a couple of minutes. You'll be at it for hours with a TIG. So yeah, I've shown you my TIG welder. You've seen most of my stuff. I don't know what's next. I'll have to have a think about what we're going to do next. I need to make some more tooling for the lathe, but I don't know whether I'll do that next, or we still need to do show us your cupboards, etc. I quite have a lot of cupboards, all bought second hand, all for a pittance, and I'll explain when I do that, and we'll go through them all, show you what I've got in them. Most of it's junk, but it's a workshop, and it's my workshop. Thanks guys for watching. If any of you like these videos, please give us a thumbs up, and subscribe. It helps my channel. I think I'm up to 580, 570 odd subscribers, so I'm heading to 1,000. Whether I'll ever get there, I don't know. I'd love to. It'd be great to get to 1,000, but whether I do or not, I don't know. And it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't stop me enjoying what I do. See you later, guys.